Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. It is such an honor and a joyful privilege of mine to be able to stream live this evening from the page of Guyana Uncut. Someone who has joined in this ongoing battle to ensure that Guyana as a nation is not further swamped and engulfed by the agenda that rules this age. I am Nigel London. I am an apostle of the Lord Yeshua, and I'm certainly delighted to be able to have this moment to speak to you on this platform. As usual, what I ask persons to do is to say whether the audio quality is fine and the video quality is fine. As long as those qualities are okay, then we can certainly continue to stream. I am always an advocate for persons being able to express their views freely, whether you deem it derogatory or disrespectful. It really doesn't bother me. My mind is always about persons having the right to express themselves. And I know it may sound strange coming from a preacher, but I've never been one who has been prone to seeking to silence any human being from expressing their views. This broadcast, at this time, I believe, and I'm grateful for the Guyana Uncut entity, I believe is most critical. It is absolutely essential. If you are a parent, I would advise you to take the time to view this broadcast, because you will want to be well informed about what hangs over your children's head, about what environment surrounds them, about what plans are in place in this country for your children. Now, there are persons who, I'm getting the feedback. Great, it is fine. Thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback. There are individuals who have got a great challenge, a significant challenge apparently, with understanding the essence or the spirit of the LGBT, as they call themselves. I'm an advocate for the omission of anything called a transgender. You cannot, no human being can change their gender. But some persons have a difficulty understanding what this agenda of these people is all about. I have lived long enough to see the morphing of this agenda, to see the transformation of it from one that was just merely something that the average individual saw as laughable and something that was worthy of just being dismissed as just some idiotic mentality of foolish people. It still remains the same. However, the morphology is that this agenda, because of the nature and the societal profile of sodomites, this agenda has found its way into serious political circles. This agenda has been able to worm its way into an environment where politicians, because of the need for power, are prepared to sell the moral consciences of their people and their own consciences just to appease a few mentally deranged individuals. Now, let me warn you that this evening's broadcast will bear what you may consider to be strong language. I was never raised to be a soft person. I was never cultured to be what I consider a hen. I have always been raised to be a man, and as a result, I speak in a manly fashion. If speaking frankly, boldly, and in any other way that is deemed manly offends a man in this broadcast, then it says quite a bit about your manliness. Guyana has found its way in a very tricky position. And what I would like to share with you this evening is this. I know there are persons, because I've seen one up until today, who, if I approach this matter from what they call the religious perspective and say that the Bible says that something is not right, then their initial and their new reaction is, we don't believe in the Bible. You can't force us to believe in the Bible. So this trap has caught many preachers off guard and many people who are in the religious circles, even politicians. Because if you do not familiarize yourself with law and with certain protocols and declarations, then what will happen is when people say they do not believe in the Bible, then you're stuck. There's nothing else for you to say. My approach this evening on this social platform, on this secular platform, is not one that will come from Scripture, although I will address the church at some point. This approach of mine will come from what the homosexuals have sought to use, and the sodomites that they describe themselves would have sought to use to trap us into not addressing them. That's the platform I will use. That's the premise I will use. That's the background. That's the foundation on which this broadcast will stand. What instruments are they using to seek to address society in an effort to cripple it? I will use the very instrument of theirs to show you how evil this agenda is and why as parents you have to be so cautious, why as public citizens you have to be so cautious about feeding into an agenda that was meant to deceive you and meant to sweep your children out of your clutches. Our country, Guyana, located in South America, and I appreciate those of you sharing the broadcast. Our country, Guyana, located in South America, has been deemed a very impoverished nation, has been considered a third world nation. They have labeled us as in being in need of economic support. We have been considered for years persons who are at the bottom of the economic pecking order. And as a result, there is need, according to the European nations and the USA, Canada, and others, there was need for us to receive grants and loans and the like to help to bolster our economy. The UK has in Guyana this moment a British High Commissioner known as Gregory Quinn. He was bold enough after a while to let us know that all of the grants that we are receiving to repair roads, the grants to probably do other community projects, the grants to fund certain agencies, it was published that they were grants which are deemed just economic gestures to help a nation that is less fortunate. This man, this British High Commissioner in our country, has said, greetings to you all, that given all of the grants and the economic aid, the financial aid that Guyana has received, this country by now should have removed and repealed the laws that are against same-sex sexual relationships. Now, when these grants are being given to Guyana, nobody in the Guyanese society, as far as I'm aware, nothing was published that said that these economic handouts, these financial handouts that were given to this country had anything to do with the LGBTQI VWX agenda. There was no such mention when Guyana was receiving these grants. But in the last year, the British High Commissioner in this country, in the presence of our President, the Honorable His Excellency David Arthur Granger, told him to his face that by now Guyana should have repealed all of the laws that are against homosexual behaviors because of how much grants we receive. So I hope that you who are viewing have heard me clearly, that the Europeans, the British especially, gave us money, gave donations to this country with one intention behind it. And that intention spoke to our moral fiber being shredded. Why would this happen? What would be the cause of something of this nature? Guyana has found itself having some very weak politicians, extremely weak politicians, because they are so eager to be seen as good people that they seem to forget the good of the people. And they seem to neglect what is good for the people. There is a reason why the articles of law in this country, I told you I'm not using the Bible because some of you say you don't believe the Bible, so I'll address you from what you believe. The articles of law in this country, all homosexuals agree that is present. Article 351 to 354 of the Criminal Offences Act. It clearly states that any, not just the action, the suggestion to commit the act of buggery, just to suggest it, just to try to acquire this interaction from another male by a man, results or can result in 2 years imprisonment. So the suggestion in the public that says you don't have to be doing it. If you're not doing it, then you're innocent. No. If you even suggest that it should be done, it's criminal. That is how serious the articles of law are. Why? Because the framers of those articles knew the nature of these people. We cannot, as a society, allow persons whose morality would happen to be in the great minority. You can't allow these people. There's no way that Guyanese should sit back and allow these people to force their will on us. Now, permit me please to bring to your attention the reason why the British High Commissioner remains on my radar or my moral radar. This man, for the past 2 or 3 or more years, I can recall vividly 2 years, has been inviting persons to his home in what is called Spirit Day in October. He invites them, and it's organized by the British High Commissioner and the homosexual promoting groups. And this High Commissioner, imagine a High Commissioner to this country, is allowing, or the government of this country is allowing, the British High Commissioner to allow public servants to make utterances to the Guyanese people and to the world at large to suggest that Guyana has somehow endorsed, and it has to be legally, behaviors that the law says are entirely criminal. In 2018, the British High Commissioner at his residence had the Minister of Education, Nicolette Henry. She stood at his residence and said that the government of Guyana's position is that LGBTQI, and whatever other letter she found, that behavior is not against nature. The Minister of Education, I want you to hear me clearly, please. Look at the entity that was invited and represented. Education, which speaks to our children from nursery or preschool all the way up to university. College, tertiary institutions. The Minister of Education said that the government's position is that LGBTQ and all the rest of it are not anomalies against nature. Now, if the Minister of Education is going to say that lesbianism, buggery, a man saying he's a woman, if she's going to say that those things are not against nature, then imagine what happens to our children if their leader, if the person who determines and dictates and oversees policies for our children in this country has that view and says that the government supports the view. Now, I do expect persons to be on the broadcast and having their views. I said I allow you to do so. So, Javonsky Kotram is saying that the law states that we should not dust our mats after 6 p.m. It should be 6 p.m. And I'm speaking to homosexual agenda here. I'm speaking to men taking penises in their anuses. And this person could say that the law says you shouldn't dust your mat after 6 p.m. So in essence, he is saying that there is some equality between a law that says you shouldn't dust your mat outside after 6 and a man taking a penis in his butt. That's the kind of depraved minds that we have in our society. When the dusting of a mat, and that law spoke to being polite to your neighbor if you didn't understand. Because in certain places, if you dust your mat outside, it can be deemed a disturbance if the breeze is blowing in the neighbor's direction. But when you're going to come on a broadcast that speaks to an agenda that attracts children or attacks children and the children's well-being and say that dusting a mat is worthy of being brought into the equation of a man taking a penis in his anus, you need psychological help. So when the Minister of Education is going to make an utterance that the government sees homosexuality as normal, then that is an announcement that agendas that promote homosexuality will be endorsed by the government. There was no official from the government of Guyana who objected to the minister's statement. None of them. Which means, up until today, the minister's statement holds true. The Minister of Education. I engaged at a forum in Linden, Guyana. For us to, there were parents and teachers. And I inquired of the Minister of Education at that forum whether her utterance was in any way a reflection of how she really felt. The Minister of Education said to me in the presence of parents and teachers that she is prepared, and I'm quoting, and please hear me carefully, she is prepared as the Minister of Education to defend the right of any and every LGBTQ student. Do you hear me? The Minister of Education said in the presence of parents, teachers, the chief education officer, the regional education officer, Region 10, that she is prepared to defend the right of every LGBTQ student. I therefore said to the minister, Madam Minister, you are therefore speaking to us as parents, to persons as teachers, to heads of schools. You're speaking in the presence of the CEO, that you as the Minister of Education are admitting that there are lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, queer in our school system. Imagine in Guyana, where the law Article 351 and 354 is still in effect, a Minister of Education is now saying that there are students that she will protect. Imagine that. Let that marinate for a while. Because before that, there was a forum held in Linden, and it was published in news, a forum for youth. Now there's a term I want you to hear carefully, please. There is the usage of certain terms nowadays that you have to pay careful attention to. Terms such as youth and student. The homosexual group in Guyana said that they are advocating for the youths who are LGBTQ to have proper education in terms of their sexual behaviors so they will not contract certain diseases. Hear me. The youth. So if you hear this terminology, your thoughts may be, well, probably it could be an adult who's maybe 25 or 18 and somebody who's deemed an adult by law. No. The definition of the word youth is someone who is a child and someone who ranges all the way to an adult, a young person who's of adult age. Do you hear that? A child in the school is called a youth as well. So when the persons are speaking to LGBTQ youths, they're also including in that group students. But they use the word youth so you cannot trap them to say, well, you're talking about children in school. Guyana is in a serious crisis. Guyana is in a moral crisis. Guyana is in a situation in which, if she's not careful, it's already begun to happen. You should be swept away because your thought processes have become, judge not. Don't tell anybody that they're wrong. Respect everybody. Hold everybody in high esteem. Everybody is worthy of honor. No, they're not. Because I'm saying on this platform that every father who's worth his salt is supposed to protect his children. Every mother, if you're a single parent, you are supposed to protect your children. Why must your child in primary school, who's a youth, be exposed to encouragement from ministers of education to protect them if they're gay? But this happens when nations are deemed impoverished. They're too poor to stand on their own, so they have to take money from wealthier nations, and they also have to accept the moral codes of those wealthier nations. Guyana should never allow this to happen. Guyana is called a sovereign nation. You cannot be independent and controlled at the same time, or you're not independent. When did we get to the place whereby our school children are included in this LGBTQWXI nonsense? When did we get to a place in which our children in schools are allowed to be labeled lesbian, gay, bisexual, To be bisexual, you have to be interested or involved in intercourse with male and female. When did we get to that place? Thank you, my brother, Apostle Branham. When this could be acceptable. Now, some persons will say, well, they deserve human rights. So, well, let me speak to that. Because I'm saying to you, when I use the scripture, somebody said it, I told you they'll do it. We don't believe the Bible. Guyana is not Christian. So what did I say to you that came from the Bible? Nothing. I spoke to you from the law, from your law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights would have been designed by the United Nations. There are 30 articles called the Declaration or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 30 articles. Homosexuals love to speak about human rights. The term human rights comes from the United Nations. Now, the United Nations, in the 30 articles, never once mentioned LGBTQ as being acceptable. Never. There is no human right. None. Not one. In the United Nations declarations that promote homosexuality. Someone is asking, what will I do about the agenda? If you follow my page, you'll see. I'm Nigel London. You can follow my page. You will see that I go publicly with this, and these forums are what we're doing. Guyana Uncut, for example, I think there's a woman called Mudwater. Those people are doing exactly what should happen, which is make your voices heard. You cannot be quiet. The worst thing to do with this agenda is be silent, because that's what they want to do to you. There is no human right, none, declared by the United Nations that supports homosexuality. So what do homosexuals have to do? They have to search the articles of human rights by the UN and twist them to say, well, we're included because we have the right to family. When the United Nations in Article 16 speaks of the right to marriage and family, in every nation for the UN, when this was coined, homosexuality was illegal. Just get that clear. When this article, in 1948, December 1948, when the United Nations declared the 30 articles of human rights, in every nation of the UN, buggery and lesbianism, transgenderism and all the rest of it were illegal. So they did not say you deserve the right to family. Think about homosexual families. It was male and female. So they have to, now imagine going to cite the Declaration of Human Rights when the framers of that declaration had nothing about lesbianism and homosexuality in it. What is interesting for you to note is Article 19. Because Article 19 of the Declaration of Human Rights is what you sodomites who watch me now on this broadcast and want to speak like fools. You violate that to the nth degree. Because Article 19 says that every human being is entitled to their opinion. It's called the freedom of opinion and information. Now look at how you people are sick, you sodomites I'm addressing tonight. And look at how evil you are. Remember, the sodomites love to talk about human rights. And everybody is entitled to human rights. Well, the Article 19 of Human Rights Declaration speak to the freedom of opinion. Yet in Guyana, there is and has been published by the homosexual group that you are to report any anti-LGBTQ music or remarks you hear on local radio stations to SASAD. Now wait a second. If human rights are guaranteed to all, how can somebody say, and Article 19 states that you're entitled to your opinion? Somebody says if any radio station in Guyana is expressing a different opinion that is against LGBTQ, they must be reported because it's called hate music. Do you lesbians and sodomites on this broadcast tonight recognize what you're doing? You are hypocrites because you are the most guilty of violating human rights. Every person has the right to their opinion. So if someone says, in my opinion, you should not be putting your penis in a man's butt, then that's their right to say it. That's not called hate speech. That's called human rights. If someone looks at you and says to you, you're a man, you shouldn't dress like a woman, that's his opinion. That's not called hate speech. That's a human right. So the same people who are saying that they advocate for human rights are violating people's human rights. Remember that in 2017, I think it was, I was removed from the National Communication Network, NCN Channel 8 in Linden. I was removed from the network for speaking in this manner. Imagine that. So you advocate for human rights, but then you strip someone of Article 149, I think it is, of Guyana's Constitution, which is the right to freedom of speech. You're not advocates for anything but your own agenda. Every human being has the right to their opinion. And every human being has the right to express their opinion. So the homosexuals say, well, the United Nations says we have the right to equality. And equality means we must all be able to marry. And Barack Obama was used as a pawn. He was used to promote this agenda because his mind is perverted. Now, what is the danger of his actions? The danger is when you begin to use terms from the United Nations never intended to speak to homosexuality. Therefore, the right to equality has nothing to do with homosexuality. It was a statement that made that says no human being should be superior to another human being. There should be equal opportunities for all human beings. That was not about homosexuality, because I say again, when the United Nations framed the Declaration of Human Rights, the 30 articles, there was nothing in any nation of the UN that spoke to homosexuality being legal. So I'll take a moment to address some of your comments this evening. And some of your comments that obviously, unexpectedly, are directed towards saying, okay, you're a preacher and you're preaching hate. And should person be allowed to speak hate? Should person be allowed to declare certain statements to the detriment of others, and religion is destroying the world and all the rest of it? I have said nothing to you that's religious. And that's exactly how twisted and perverted your minds are, some of you who are saying these things. Because imagine I'm saying to you that I'm not speaking to you from the Bible because I know exactly what you're going to do. I'm speaking to you from what you use as lesbians and homosexuals and the rest of it to try to promote your agenda. And even when I speak from your platform, you're mad. Because you cannot stand You cannot even defend what you promote. That's how sick you are. I said nothing religious. But yet you're saying I'm speaking as a religious person. And the reason why I allow this is for this reason. I want you all to see from this platform how homosexuals process and those who support them process. They say you should have love. You should not judge. They say you shouldn't judge, but they're judging my statement as being hateful. So what are you doing? If I shouldn't judge, how do you know that I'm judging? Don't you have to make a judgmental statement yourself? So let's deal with the don't judge then. If you say I shouldn't judge, God should judge. If a man should rape your mother, why do you go to court? Why shouldn't he walk freely? If he comes and steals your car and your television set in your house, why don't you go to court and tell the police officer, well, listen, judge not. We shouldn't go to court. You are hypocrites. And because of your hypocrisy, you are allowed to behave in this manner. You say judge not. But if a man comes and rapes your child, you go to the police to make a report. Why are you making a report if you say judge not? Leave the person alone. Let God judge them. What some of you don't understand is on a wider scale, there are only two activities that are guaranteed to control populations. Guaranteed. 100% safe in terms of population control. One is abstinence. The second is homosexuality. Homosexuality, apart from abstinence, is the only act that guarantees birth control and population control. And you people who support this behavior, and you who are involved in the behavior, don't understand that children who are called minors do not have any voice or any authority by law to defend themselves. So adults like me, I don't have an issue with your sheepish and obviously mentally deranged comments, because for me, I will continue to stand for the right of children in Guyana. Whenever you have got politicians and others who are going to say that they're LGBTQ students in this country, I shall deal with you. I shall speak against you. I shall make the communities aware of your actions. Because many parents don't understand what you're doing. So you're saying that, okay, this is about adults. If it's about adults, then how do we have a grown man saying that he likes boys? How do we have, since you want me to address that, how do you have deacons and preachers in churches who are going after boys? How do you have imams in the court for molesting boys? How do you have pandits who are involved in this behavior? This is not about adults alone, because within the homosexual agenda, there's a book that's called After the Ball. And this book, written by Marshall Kirk and Erastus Pill, clearly states that there's a group in America called NAMBLA, North American Man to Boy Love Association. NAMBLA, North American Man to Boy Love Associations. And they said in the book that you should not put that group in front of the LGBTQ fight because they'll be resisted. That's what it said since the 1980s. But now you have men in our country. One of them was before the court for saying he likes boys. Understand Understand what we're dealing with in this country. In the US, they're now suggesting that in Europe, in Britain, they're suggesting that pedophilia should now be included as a legitimate sexual orientation. If they are about consenting adults, then why would Gregory Quinn and others and the Minister of Education say that she's protecting LGBTQ students? How could students be adults at the same time? How can a primary school child be an adult? I'll tell you how. Because if a man can look in the mirror and say he's a woman, then he can look at a child and say you're a man. Homosexuals, especially those who are males and say they're females, or those who are women and say you're a man. You people have got a serious mental issue. You are mentally deranged. You are sick in your minds. And what happened to preachers, they want to sound so good, and politicians and imams and pundits, they want to be so respectful, and politicians. You see, people don't vote for me. So understand clearly here. There's nothing in my book that says there is some agenda here for you to support me in some way. When persons have this interest in wearing a certain political persona that makes them look so acceptable in society's eyes, then they cannot tell you homosexuals exactly what they should. I am telling you without fear, without any favor, that you have a mental issue. You are mentally deranged. You are sick in your mind. Some of you are functionally mad. Having a law degree and standing in the court doesn't mean that you're not sick. You're mad. You're a crazy, you are an attorney who's mentally deranged. If you could stand in the mirror as a man and say that you are a female, but you're an attorney, you are a sick-minded attorney. Now, there's a talk in society that speaks to respect and speaks to tolerance. And you don't understand that respect and tolerance are both, they're earned. And here comes somebody saying that pedophilia is different from homosexuality. Now, says who? If a male adult engages in sexual relations with a male boy, isn't that a homosexual act? Kelly Abrams, it will do you well to check a dictionary before you speak. If a female adult engages in a sexual act with a minor child who's female, isn't that a homosexual act? You mean to tell me that you people are so mentally shallow that you can't even say something sensible on this broadcast? Now, the terminologies that speak to respect, as I said, and they say you should respect everybody. Says who? Respect means to have great esteem for another person, to hold someone in high regard. Am I supposed to say, are you supposed to tell me then, that if a man says, I like little boys, I should hold him in high regard? That's what Guyana has come to? That a man who says he likes your little 8-year-old son, you must hold him in high regard? If this country does not have persons like Mudwater and others who are prepared to speak as callously as you have to, as frankly as you have to y'all, you would not stop, you homosexuals, because you're of the view that you rule and you dominate society. You're allowed to do it because persons are afraid of your labeling them like what the book says. After the boss says, if I speak in this manner, then you have to label me as you saw in the broadcast. You have to label Nigel London as a preacher of hate. Label him as a tyrant. Call him the worst names you can. And once you do that, other people who view him will not want to be called what he is called. Imagine that. Imagine that persons have advised you sick-minded homosexuals to speak in a manner about someone who's against you. Remember Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that I have the right to my opinion. And you're saying that if someone expresses an opinion that's against you, it's called hate speech. So in your homosexual eyes, and the agenda's eyes is, only those who accept us have love. Imagine that you have the nerve to bully people and then say that you're victims of bullying. If you force me to accept your position, that's called bullying. If you threaten, as they did in television, to remove me from the air, if I don't do what they say, that is called bullying. Now think about it. These are the people who are so victimized and so much in need of protection, yet they promote the worst speech. If you follow this broadcast this evening, if you review it on a rebroadcast, you'll see who was speaking in what manner. Okay, so female Kiki, I guess as a man. Nigel London will burn in hell with his whole church. And that's love right there. Look. Imagine these sodomites came on the broadcast. And they're the respectable ones. They need protection. And they can come to attack someone's view. Then they'll go to Zuckerberg and they'll complain that we're preaching hate. And Zuckerberg is going to try to appease them by saying, okay, remove them from the broadcast, remove this broadcast because it's hate speech. While they say these things about me, it's not hate speech. But once Mudwater talks about them, it's hate speech. Because preachers, imams, pundits, and others, politicians especially, are so concerned about their public image, their nice boy image, their nice girl image. That is why they have to be so cautious about telling you exactly how sick you are. I am telling you that if you are a man and you stand in front of a mirror thinking you're a female, you have a mental disorder. You are sick. And then some of you say, well, we were born that way. Then you were born with a mental disease. Now see, Javonsky, and I close, Kotram decided to bring Jesus in the equation. First of all, I do not subscribe to an Anglo-Saxon person. Yeshua was Hebrew. So I don't go by what the Europeans try to form and present to you, that girly looking person. But since you ask, the Messiah, Yeshua, HaMashiach, never had to deal with homosexuality. And I'm glad you brought it up. So it's one of you sodomites brought it up, so I'll address you about that. You invited a preacher to talk now. The Messiah, Yeshua, HaMashiach, never had to deal with y'all. You know why? Because Leviticus says a man must not live with a man as he does with a woman. If he does, he's stoned to death. So he didn't have your problem. If you want to bring Jesus in the equation, Yeshua, the Messiah, didn't have this issue because y'all were dead. Think about that. Since you want to bring him in the equation, he never had to speak to what was non-existent. You were dead. You were stoned to death. Any effeminate man was killed. You really want to bring your Jesus in the equation? Because although Jesus is wrong, the wrong name is nobody ever called Jesus, was ever called Jesus then. Still, that person you talk about didn't have to deal with that. Messiah, Yeshua, Javonsky, whatever your name is, you asked me as a preacher to talk. He didn't have to deal with you because you were stoned to death. Do you really want to bring him in the equation now? He called you dogs. The scripture says in Deuteronomy that no dog, which is a male prostitute, must bring their money to the church. And that's exactly who preachers in trouble. I told you I'll address you before I go tonight. You preachers don't know the scripture. The scripture says that no dog or no prostitute can bring any money to the Lord's house. But still you church preachers taking offering from these people to build your church and to buy speakers to the church and buy keyboards. In Revelation 22 it says outside of the gate, outside, not inside, were dogs which are male homosexuals. You will not inherit the kingdom. Since you want me to talk, since you want to bring the preacher out of me. We've got to understand, as I close, my brothers and my sisters, Guyana can only be rescued by persons of courage. In Canada, the preachers years ago said that will never be a day in Canada when they cannot talk about homosexuality publicly, because Canada is too peaceful. They said that Canada's society would not lend itself to such aggressive forms of religious control. Do you recognize who's leading the world today in this agenda? Canada. The preachers are quiet and said they would not do this to us. The old preacher said this would happen. Canada is too much of a normal and nice place. So female Kiki's back. Mr. Nigel London will be in jail. SASA will jail Nigel London for cyberbullying. Do you see exactly why preachers don't want to talk? Because they're afraid. So what female Kiki could do is you could call them and call the police to come and arrest me for cyberbullying. My number is 600-3792. 592-600-3792. Call it and tell the police to call me for cyberbullying and arrest me. Try it. Since you're slow to hear, I'll repeat it for your sake. 592. Put a plus sign if you want to send on WhatsApp. 592-600-3792. You call the commissioner of police and tell him to come arrest me for cyberbullying. Because I just said Article 19 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that every human being is entitled to their opinion. And this is called cyberbullying. So telling Guyanese that they should be cautious of persons who are speaking about LGBTQ students is cyberbullying. Telling you have a mental disorder because you take a penis in your butt and say you're a woman is cyberbullying. Then let the police come arrest me then. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, much less a sodomite. Preachers fear you all because they depend on some of you for money. I don't fear you. I have never been afraid of a fool. You have to change your course of action or don't seek to infringe upon mine. You will not escape by bullying me. Once again, I am grateful to Guyana Uncut for this opportunity. I thank you for being bold, for being courageous, and for opening this platform. It's an unusual platform for a preacher, but I'm grateful for it. I hope this evening that someone would be encouraged, someone would be emboldened to stand as a citizen of this country, as a citizen of the world, to say that you have, according to the UN, the right to your opinion and you express it freely. According to the laws of Guyana, you are lawful when you express yourself freely. Do not defame anyone. Do not defame or slander, but do defend your opinion. I will not ever relent in this quest. I shall not ever deny my conscience to appease sick, foolish people. If their fathers, who can stand and say they protect their sons from you all, half you wouldn't turn out the way you are. You would not bully me. You're bullying me when the Minister of Health can use a taxpayer's money, if that's the case, to fund caring for or giving PrEP pill to homosexual men. If ever taxpayers have to pay for that, that's bullying, because you're telling me as a taxpayer I don't have the right to say you shouldn't use taxpayers' money for it. Somebody should take you out of court. Stand against this, Guyana. Do not slide morally. You will regret it. You've begun to regret it already. These people have no love for you, none. You saw, and I'm happy that you were able to see it if you joined this broadcast. You see how they react to persons whose opinion differ from theirs. They will seek to devour you. They shall. They're brutish. I remember Mudwater made a song, I think it is somewhere, it was published, and it was removed. It was blocked. When the United Nations says that you have a right to expression, which means you can sing songs you want. It's not dressing like a woman. Thank you, Lauren Pierre. That's very good. So please, do well. I wish those of you who are good in terms of your graces, I wish you well. And I hope that you find the courage to stand for something. Die knowing that you stood for something that was right. If you hear that I'm arrested for bullying, rejoice, because it's a good thing. But those of you sodomites, you might as well start regretting the moment you do that, because you've already seen what is over this nation. The Mudwater is asking me, can you find me? Thank you, because some sodomites may want to come to fight. They were supposed to come before. We meet at Ocean View International Hotel on Sundays at 1 o'clock. So anyone you sodomites have already threats to raise here, you can find me there. We meet at Ocean View on Sundays at 1, or you can find me via Facebook at Nigel London, YouTube at Nigel London TV, or I just give my number, 6003792. So female Kiki, since I'll be arrested, you be the first one to show up on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And bring the police to tell them that I was cyberbullying y'all and come and arrest me from church. I don't fear you people. I never will. If you don't mind typing it, you can do so to share with people. My WhatsApp information is 973-641-1259. I'm giving you all the contacts to give to the police officers to arrest me for cyberbullying. I am grateful. I remain grateful to those of you who would have been on this platform. I'm thankful for the like of Javonsky Kotram, because you were able to prove what I said. And I'm happy that you're able to be a perfect candidate to prove what happens when persons disagree with your kind. To Guyana Uncut, I am truly grateful, and I hope and pray that you do not lose sight of what really matters. Our children are too important. They have now gone down the path of talking about lesbians and these people in schools. We are not going to stand for that. Thank you. Good evening. Goodbye.